Okay, I am Jennifer Zwilling. I am the curator and director of artistic programs here at the Clay Studio. Welcome to the first event for Future of Clay, where we're joined by our amazing three co-curators, Anya Montiel, Angelique, Vizcarrondo, Laboy, and Zindzi Harley. Thank you for joining us. We'd like to recognize that the Clay Studio stands on the indigenous territory known as Lenape, the traditional homelands of the Lenape people. We would like to take a moment to reflect on the role of the Lenape as the past, present, and future stewards of the land, and the role of all of us to join in their tradition of respect and caring for the land and each other. Okay, so I'm going to start with Angelique Vizcarrondo Laboy, who is a New York-based curator, writer, art historian, and arts and grants administrator. Her practice advocates for underrepresented communities, stories, materials, and approaches in the art world. Her research investigates the aesthetics of optimism, the subversive power of humor, cuteness, and leisure as tools of protest. She is currently the director of the New York City Department of Transportation Art. Vizcarrondo Laboy also served as assistant curator at the Museum of Arts and Design in New York from 2016 to 2022, where she was part of Matt's curatorial team, helping organize over 20 exhibitions and projects. She also created and co-hosts the podcast Clay in Color with artist Alex Anderson, which focuses on artists of color engaging with strategies of humor, cuteness, and the decorative in ceramics. Great podcast. I hope everybody checks it out. Oh, here comes Morel. Her new book, New Women's Work, reflecting on the relationship between feminine crafts and contemporary art through conversations with artists, from Smith Street Books, is coming out on October 1st. Congratulations. I'm excited about that. She earned her BA in art history from the University of Florida with minors in anthropology and ceramics and an MA from the Bard Graduate Center in New York. Decorative arts, design, history, and material culture. Vizcarrondo Laboy was born and raised in Puerto Rico. Welcome, Angelique.
Thank you. I wanted to show, I have the book right here. Very
Oh,
excited.
great.
Um, Happy to be here.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to do all of the bios and then we'll come back. So I hope you're thinking about the questions. Dr. Anya Montiel is a curator at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. Previously, she was the curator of American and Native American women's art and craft through the Smithsonian American Women's History Initiative. She was assistant professor of art history at the University of Arizona, teaching courses in Native American art, global arts and crafts, indigenous feminisms, and museum studies. Her recent NMAI exhibition, Ancestors Know Who We Are, explores the interwoven histories of Black and Indigenous peoples through art. Montiel earned her PhD in American Studies at Yale University. She has been awarded the Lois Moran Award for Craft Writing from the American Craft Council and is a Ford Foundation Fellowship for her dissertation, Intertwined Intermediaries, Fundamental Issues in 20th Century Native American Art, that examined the pervasive issues entangled in art created by Native Americans and Alaskan Natives in the United States. Welcome, Anya.
Thank you, everyone. It's wonderful to be here.
And we are going from A to Z, if you didn't notice. Z, of course, being my favorite letter. Zindzi Harley is a dedicated and enthusiastic brand strategist, curator, and creative consultant. She holds a BA in Arts Administration with a minor in Art History from the University of Kentucky and an MA in Museum Studies from the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. Sad face for all of us here in Philly, where her research centered on the activism, histories, and organizational frameworks of Black museums. As a student, she was among the first DEI fellows at UArts and participated in the inaugural Museum Professional Seminar at the Studio Museum in Harlem. Harley's curatorial efforts focused on enriching the narratives and interpretations of contemporary art, material culture, fashion, and design related to the African diaspora. Previously, Harley served as assistant curator of the African American Museum in Philadelphia, where she played a key role in curating exhibitions and programming. She founded the Philadelphia chapter of Black Girls in Art Spaces, organizing meetups at notable venues like the Philadelphia Magic Gardens and the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Additionally, Harley is the founder and editor-in-chief of Zindzi, a quarterly publication that highlights a wide range of contemporary artists, creatives, and businesses from the East Coast and beyond. Her involvement extends to various Philadelphia entities and historic sites, including roles such as co-curating programming for the 2023 Mural Arts Black Arts Fellowship, managing community programs at Ars Nova Workshop, and curating projects at Past Present Projects. Currently, Zindzi is advancing her studies by pursuing a PhD in art, theory, aesthetics, and philosophy at the Institute for Doctoral Studies in the Visual Arts in London. I didn't write down where it is. Right, Zindzi?
They're based in Maine, but we tend to travel abroad. So I was just in Italy not too long ago.
Italy, that's where it was. Okay, great.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy
Thank
to
you.
chat with you guys.
Welcome. Okay, Angelique, would you like to answer our question? How and why did you make the brave decision to make your life in art?
I'm like, how do I make this story short? When I went to school, I went to the University of Florida. I actually was studying biomedical engineering. Um, yeah, and I did that for almost 3 years of college, but at the same time, I was doing a minor in art history because I just happened to sign up I needed an elective and I typed art, and then Art History 101 came up, and I was like, cool, I'll take that. And then I ended up really liking it, so I kept taking art history classes, and it was my minor. And of course, those two things didn't make sense together. And then I got to organic chemistry, and I called my mom one day, and I was like, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. I really hate this science stuff. I hate being in a lab. This is just isn't for me. And I, dropped that major, and then it just made sense, right? Like my minor would become my major, and that's how I ended up doing art history. My mom very recently, as in like in maybe like the last year, called me and said, hey, I'm glad I didn't freak out on you when you called me and said you were dropping that major, because clearly you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, which was really sweet of her to say. Yeah, at the end of the day, our history was what was fulfilling me and not the other thing I was studying. And when that switch happened, I had to take studio classes, and I ended up picking ceramics. And so I was taking a decorative arts class and at the same time the ceramics classes, and it just opened up the world for me, and that's where my love for ceramics began. I just kept going with it.
That's great. Was there something in particular when you took that art history class that like really kind of like lit that passion? Like what was it about taking that class?
Yeah, I think in general for me it's how we are able to like tell stories or just learn so much about a person, a group of people, a moment in time. Like it's just there's so much that can be found within this inanimate things, like whether it's a sculpture or a painting or whatever it is. It's just like we as like humans can put so much into these objects. And that's really what still matters to me at the end of the day when it comes to art. It's like, what are the stories that we can tell with these things?
Yeah. What does it tell us about our humanity?
Yeah.
Storytelling. That's great. Thank you. Okay. Anya, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Anya Montiel, and I'm currently, as mentioned, a curator at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. But I do not come from a family of artists. Actually, my family are electricians. So my mother, my stepfather, and my brother are all electricians. So it probably would have been an easier path to just go into the family work instead of pursuing what I do. But I was someone who was always a museum kid. So I come from a single parent household. And so as a kid, I was the person going to museums. And I went to classes at museums where I learned about dioramas, where I learned about art. And so that's really did the spark for me, is that I had no idea how somebody works in a museum or what is that like. And so through those classes, I started to become a volunteer at museums and intern at museums. And so that's really sort of had my love of what I do, is just seeing what people do as they work in museums. And so I was very lucky that after my master's degree, I got a job at the National Museum of the American Indian, where I got to work behind the scenes in collections as well as working on exhibitions. But I discovered that since I did not have a PhD, I would always be the assistant to the curator, but I could not be a curator myself. So then at the age of 37, I decided to go back to school for my PhD. And that was, I believe, 12 years ago. So after I graduated with my PhD, then suddenly I am now a curator. So after all those years, that for me, that degree helped me be where I am. And what I love about what I do at work is really working with artists. So I think if I had a job where I didn't work with artists, where we could talk about their work or look at the historic collections, then it would not be enjoyable. So that is really what I love doing, is just talking to people about the art that they create and then looking at older works in the collection.
That's great. Thank you. Do you think when you were a kid and you were in museums, they felt like a place where you belonged, and that's why you liked it there? And like, what do you think helped you feel that way?
Well, honestly, so I grew up in San Francisco. So the museum that I went to is the California Academy of Sciences, which is a natural history and science museum. So there you could kind of run and do things and be loud. Across the street is the De Young Museum, which was not that way. And so you had to be very quiet. So I will say my entry point into museums was really through science and natural history museums, because there you, as a kid, I really did feel welcome and that I could explore and run around.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's so important as curators, thinking about our spaces. I just feel like making people feel welcome in the gallery and comfortable is a big part of our job that sometimes gets lost in the conversation. So yeah, thank you for saying that. Okay, Zindzi, how about you?
Yeah, I think my experience has been kind of at the intersection of both Anya and Angelique's story. I really have always been around the arts. I come from a family of creatives that have always worked independently for themselves. So I think following that path was not off-putting to me. It was something that came very naturally to me. When I went to college, I actually was studying biology as well, but shortly after, beginning my studies, I knew I should continue doing what I was really passionate about, which was art. I went to a fine arts high school, and I just really loved my art history classes. My professors were so passionate. They were all incredible women that had these wonderful careers that they just seemed really happy with. And I think a lot of that passion rubbed off on me. Some of my best college experiences are just sitting in art history class and listening to lectures about my favorite artists, uh, particularly my gender and women's studies class that I took in college. And that really, set me up to begin pursuing higher education to ultimately become a curator. But I think just really being exposed to the multiple ways that you can be creative has been something that's been huge for me as a curator. I think I've never felt a barrier personally for myself in museums, but I think understanding the way communities can feel that way has been something that's really inspired me to kind of turn the museum on its head in a way and show that it can be, this place that everyone can exist, different mediums, different forms of creativity, and just making that more accessible to the public. So I think that being an artist of sorts or having that artistic spirit has always been something that I've been possessed with, but also just very inspired by in my community. And I think through my practice, I really intend to honor those people that are walking down that path as well.
Thank you. That's a great way to say it, to honor the people. I think that's part of why I like to ask that question about emphasizing how brave it is to be part of this world. And I think it's important to honor the artists who are really putting themselves and their emotions out on display for everyone. And it's tough. And the rest of us benefit from it. So thank you for ending with that idea of honor. Okay, now I'm going to go back to Angelique. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so just to remind everyone on the call, and I know we do have some of the artists in the show who are on Zoom with us, so thank you for being here. Next Saturday, the October 5th from 4 to 6 is the opening of the Future of Clay, so please join us for that. And here we have Angelique's slides that she is going to share a little bit about her curatorial practice in general.
Hold on, I'm muted. Hi. Okay. So what to say? So I'll share a little moment of joy. I didn't share it earlier because I was like, well, I think it's more applicable if I say it as we're looking at this slide. The catalog that I wrote for this exhibition, which is called Funk You Too, it's a finalist for an award. So that's exciting.
Congratulations.
I'll share this is the last project that I did at MAD, where, as Jennifer mentioned, I used to work, but I actually did this project independently. So working with them, but I did it as an independent curator. I worked solely as an independent curator for the last 2 years before I started my job at the DOT. I will say it is quite a challenging job to work independently. You have to be really disciplined, and you're your own boss, but that also means that you're responsible for absolutely everything. And that can be a challenge, and part of the reason why I was looking for some stability. But with that said, what I'm trying to say is that I even more so understand artists and how challenging and how brave it is to be an artist, because it works in a similar way in which you are all looking to figure out what you're doing next and like when the next paycheck is coming. So more power to you, and huge admiration for artists and everything that they do. So this project was years in the making. It took like 6 or 7 years for this project to come to fruition. I had this idea pretty soon into starting my job at MAD, so like 2016, 2017. But I was a young woman coming out of grad school, just building my career up, and it took a lot to get people to listen and to want to pay attention and to want to support this project. It started through a pilot project at the Center for Craft in Asheville. I would say they've been very supportive of my career, really thankful to them. But I was a curatorial fellow with them in 2019, and they helped me put on a very small version of this project, which was really looking at how contemporary artists, especially contemporary artists of color and women, were using the aesthetics and the themes and the approaches of funk ceramics from the 60s and the 70s to sort of address the sociopolitical issues of today. And so using humor and cuteness and these other things that a lot of people tend to dismiss when it comes to art. And I kept seeing it everywhere. And then it's like over the years, it just became more and more prominent. And then finally, I was able to put this bigger show at MAD. It was an entire floor. It had like 27 artists, something like that, both historical and contemporary artists. It was a really exciting project, but it's also a project that like I did very much on my own. So it was a lot, and it was great to like finally put it out there and kind of close a chapter of my life after this project went out. We can go to the next one.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a project that I did in LA with Guerrero Gallery. It was called Barro Barrio, which means like clay neighborhood. And it was just like a celebration of just how much of a history there is when it comes to clay in LA. There's just, California generally has just such a huge history when it comes to ceramics. And it was really cool to just be able to like literally bring all these folks together into one space. And a lot of them like emerging voices that haven't gotten as much of their due, but just being able to put all these different voices into one room and say like, isn't it cool that we're into this material that also has such like um a history that kind of depends on who you ask. Like, is it a good material or is it a like not a good material when it comes to art? And that's something that, it's been part of my practice too, is just as a craft curator, being able to put these materials forth as like worthy of the same like examination and study that painting gets all the time, or like being part of just the general like canon of our history. So it was really cool to just being able to put all these sculptures into one space.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay.
And then this is my most recent project. It's a collaboration between myself and Kelly Riggs. We were selected to be the co-curators of the Objects USA 2024 Triennial. For those who don't know, Objects USA was a show that was put together around 1968, 1967. And it was a show that brought together like over 300 artists at the time. And it's a show that traveled for like a decade in the States, in Europe. And it was really meant as a celebration of like art, craft, design, and sort of making these objects that for some were functional, but a lot of them weren't, or they were like pseudo functional. And our company, a gallery here in New York in Tribeca, they in 2020 they got together with Glenn Adamson and a couple other collaborators, and they put together like the 2020 version in celebration of like 50 years or 50 years, 55 years from the original. And they did like historical, and then they did contemporary work, and then they decided to do a triennial. And so that's where Kelly and I come in. We decided to put together this show. We're featuring 55 artists and designers. They are all living artists. So they're still producing work, even though the ages range from like 20 something to 80 something. It's really cool to be able to put some of these artists together in the same room that like in any other context it wouldn't make sense, or like you would never think that they would be in the same room. And this show, it's not just ceramics, it's all kinds of materials. There's fiber and there's furniture and there's metal and jewelry. It's all these different things. And we came up with these 7 archetypes. So that's how we organized the project. And it's a spectrum. So this flowing spectrum of action and generative categories, and they go from like one to the other. And we were really thinking about the narratives and the approaches to making objects, not just about like it being an object or being material specific or object specific, but rather like what is the motivation that this artist or designer has in making these things. And then that's how the categories came about. So we have things like truth sayers for artists who are really dedicated to one medium, and they're like really more thinking about transforming the object into something beautiful, but they're not trying to turn it into something that you don't recognize, which is a different category. Jolie is in this show, which she's also in the future of clay. And for example, she's a beta tester. She's a truth sayer / beta tester, as someone who is really interested in the concept of the vessel, but using things like 3D printing to elevate and come up with different things like a lamp. There's a lamp by Jolino in the show. So anyway, that's the gist.
Excellent. And everyone can come and go to New York and see the show, right? It's open until
January, so there's time, and there's going to be programs and other things happening. But yeah, it's open.
great. R and Company in Tribeca. Yeah. I can send you the info later. The letter R and Company. Yeah. It's good stuff. Okay. Anya.
Yes. So when I was in graduate school, that was the first time that I was allowed to do my own show. So no longer assisting other curators on their shows. So my response was this one called All That Remains Material Remembrances in Love and Loss. That was at the Yale Institute of Sacred Music. So that is a gallery that's housed within the Yale Divinity School. So the students there are, studying religion, and some of them are training to become ministers and other religious people. So what I decided to do was to assemble artists who their works are talking about manifesting loss and grief following the death of loved ones. So some of them are really talking about the loss of their beloveds. Others are also talking about their responses to and ideas about death. So I really wanted to do a very emotional show, and probably because I was in graduate school and I was feeling all the emotions, of just stress all the time and being very far away from my family. So this piece here is by Luis de Soto. He is an artist based in Northern California around the Napa area. And so he is a practicing Buddhist. He's also a native artist. And this was his response when his father passed away, someone that he just felt was larger than life, and he just couldn't imagine this person not being in his life anymore. So it is called Parinirvana, and it is a piece that it inflates. So in the morning you inflate it, and it has life, and then at the end of the day we unplugged it, and then it went back to the ground, showing this life cycle. And so a lot of people came just to watch the viewing of it returning to the ground and finishing its life cycle. There were so many wonderful programs about it. There were a lot of students who wanted to do programs. We had a modern dance performance about one of the students who lost her sister. So I was just really happy that it could be part of a campus community where people could really talk about love and loss in that way. The other exhibition, let's see, it's called Ancestors Know Who You Are. It is a digital exhibition on the National Museum of the American Indian website. This is something that I started during the pandemic. And how do we reach out to our visitors when our doors are closed? And so this was kind of a response of, and I wanted to move beyond the idea of the Native experience or the Black experience to highlight how gender and mixed race identity informs art and creative expression. So the exhibition brings together 6 Black Indigenous women artists whose works address issues of race, gender, multiracial identity, and intergenerational knowledge. I also love that this is kind of, I feel, a community exhibition, because since I am not Afro-Indigenous, I reached out to community members and they provided the essays. So they provided the essays that talk about themes in the show, as well as they did the extended labels, so they could talk about the works that are in the show. Also, I wanted the artists to be present as much as possible. So there are Zoom interviews with all of the artists so you can really get to know them. And we also had an in-person program where all the artists came together to talk about their work. And that was actually the first time that these artists had ever met one another. And it was also the first time that they had ever been to the National Museum of the American Indian. So it was really wonderful for them to also have time in community. And then the third exhibition is more recent. So this is something that I curated with Olivia Miller, who is the director of the University of Arizona Museum of Art. And Marlo Catoni is a Navajo artist who attended the University of Arizona in the School of Art. And he always had a dream of someday having a show at his alma mater. And when I was talking to Olivia, we were just so in love with Marlo's works. He does paintings as well as he does textiles, and he had been invited to be part of the Tucson Biennial for the Tucson Museum of Art. So we really wanted him to have his own show and be able to talk to young students about what getting an education at the University of Arizona School of Art was all about. So it was really great because his work really talks about popular culture, street art, nature, family, and being Navajo. And so for him, he said, for me, being an artist is an ongoing pursuit of freedom. It's of the aesthetic of not being limited to the notion of having to abide by the popular perceptions of beauty or to create something that is identifiable as Navajo, but to deconstruct old ideas to create new ones. So it was really lovely to work with Marlo. And because of that show, one of the donors or lenders gave a piece to the University of Arizona Museum of Art. So that was really a big win for me as well. So now they have a work of his in their permanent collection.
That's amazing. Congratulations. That's a good feeling, you know, because it can live on. We do this work, we make these amazing things, we work on them for years, and then they're over. Everyone's it's like, okay, what's next? Yeah. Great. Thank you. Zindzi, you want to tell us about this one?
Yeah. So this is a show that I did a couple years back. It was at the Delaware Contemporary. I curated this show with Chase Doherty, who's the curator of contemporary art there. We actually went to graduate school together, so it was really great to work with somebody who had, been, preparing to do this kind of work. But it's a really great show that was pulling from artists that are a part of their community, their direct community. They have a database of living artists that they work with or show in their galleries. So we brought together a really wonderful selection of artists that were really focusing on just getting back to the basics of art, right? Form, line, color, and doing that through abstract and expressionist works. I was really inspired by artists like Georgia O'Keeffe, and I really wanted to bring together this group of artists following the pandemic to just get back to more of that instinctual nature that we have with art and how it produces feeling, and less of the figurative work and looking into pieces that require, I guess, just a little bit more interpretation beyond the senses. And I think the community was really excited about this show because one, it was a show that they could finally attend after the pandemic, but also it was just really great that they could connect with the work from a more sensory perspective. We called this show In Communion, and I wanted folks to really be in communion, in community with the work. So this was a really exciting show to work on with Chase, and I really loved working on the text for this show in particular because beyond some of the references in the text of certain art historical movements and notable artists, it was really awesome to see more local makers getting some attention in this show. So
great. That's a great title. I love it. About this one.
So this is a smaller show that I essentially created a pop-up gallery for. I work on a Black marketplace with one of my girlfriends in Philadelphia. She's really incredible community organizer named Deborah Charvalus. She's Haitian, and I'm also Caribbean. My family's from the U.S. Virgin Islands, so we love doing this marketplace called Cadeau. Cadeau means the gift, and it's a Haitian word. So we really hope that this marketplace is a gift to the community. It's all about exposing people to Black creativity and Black makers. So for this show, I brought together a selection of, I believe, 5 to 6 local artists at Hatfield House, which is a historic house in the Strawberry Mansion area, which is a historically Black neighborhood as well. It was really incredible bringing these artists together. A lot of them were friends, but all just really talented emerging Black artists. This picture in particular is showing a talk that we had. I brought together a couple of folks in the community that are doing work with archives. A lot of the artists that were in this show were working in what I call archival mediums, so photography, collage, anything that's really pulling together pieces from the past or documenting Black heritage and culture. So yeah, this was a really lovely talk with Morgan Lloyd, who's at the African American Museum. She runs the 1838 Metropolis Project. And also we had Robert from the Tanner House, which was really incredible. Chris from the Tanner House. And we just got to talk about the impact and the power of archives in our community of, focusing on the past to inform our present and how we're building Black futures. So really great show.
Great. And this marketplace is coming up again soon, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So Cadeau is going to be coming up again. This iteration is the 5th installment. It's going to be a part of Design Philadelphia. So that will be October 5th. And it will be at the Design Philadelphia location on Arch Street, I believe. So if you want to check out some local Black makers, grab a couple of things from our vendors. We're also going to be doing a lot of work with zines this iteration. So there will be a lot of local illustrators and folks in the zine community as well, showing their work, which kind of leads me to this next show, which is also in Hatfield House. This happened a few years prior during my graduate studies. This is a show that I curated with Past Present Projects and their founder, Heather Moftadiri. Heather is incredible. I've been working with her for many years since graduate school, and she really has provided some of my first curatorial opportunities. This show I did create a zine for, but it was curated with the artist Black Quantum Futurism, which is an incredible duo, Rashida and Kame. They're both housing attorneys based in Philadelphia. They have gotten so many great opportunities recently to continue their work abroad. And their work really focuses on Afrofuturism. And this show in particular touched on a film that they made called Ancestors Returning to Themselves, returning this time only to themselves. And this show really highlighted how they work to collapse these Western metaphysics, such as time, that can be very oppressive. And this film focused on how the Black community, in doing this work of breaking down time, we can return back to our ancestors and gather this really important information and technology that allows us to build Black futures. So this was a really incredible show. I loved working with them. And I feel so lucky because right after this, they've just been on a world tour since then. So yeah, I really enjoyed this show, and also making a zine for it as well. I've gotten to make a couple of zines with Past Present Projects. That's another passion of mine. It kind of led up to me making Zindzi, which is the quarterly that I do now. But yeah, we did a zine-based program for this where people could come and see the show and create their own zines as well. So
super cool. Thank you. Okay. Well, thanks to all of you. I just, we're going to super quickly go through the artists in a moment, but hopefully everyone on this call is going to come back, because each of the artists in the Future of Clay is also going to have their own Clay and Conversation. So you get a lot more opportunity to hear about the work that way. But I also just want to talk a little bit about how grateful I am that all of these three amazing curators agreed to work with me, and that we had a really nice opportunity to just like spend some time talking about this idea. We've been working on it for over a year, right, everybody? And had some really fun kind of Zoom meetings where we talked about the idea, like, well, what does this mean? I kept thinking that we were going to sort of come up with another title besides the Future of Clay. Was my working title, but in the end, the point is that it's just, that's really the question. What is the future of art? What is the future of humanity? What is the future of clay? And just to give people a little background, each of the curators chose, we kind of pooled our resources with ideas, and then everyone chose two artists that they kind of specifically focused on, which is what we can go over in a second. But I would love to hear, now this I'm just springing on everyone. Does anyone have any comments about your experience with this as a group curation project? It was, for me, like I said, a real honor and just like exciting every time we got to talk. But any thoughts on that? Probably should have prepped you with this question.
I'll go first. I had a wonderful time working on this show. I think it's always just really exciting as a curator to connect with other curators, and also to connect with other artists as well that are just doing incredible work, even if it's not in maybe your niche or specialty. So I think that was just very inspiring for me. I oftentimes am telling people, oh, I'm a curator. That's what I do professionally. And people are like, what's a curator? Or I don't know any other curators. So I think that kind of just goes to show how far few in between people doing this kind of work are. And it was, yeah, really an honor as well to work with you guys. Clay Studio is honestly one of my favorite museums in Philly. And I also just love how involved with other artists and makers you are. I think it's super important to provide opportunities to artists because it's such a challenging profession to just keep up with. But I think so many of us are really trying to pursue it authentically. So any resources are always very appreciated. Um, so, and also just, I've been able to do some incredible work bringing other artists to Clay Studio as well. So I'm always very appreciative of you guys having your doors open. But creating this show has really been beautiful, and just seeing so many of these incredible artists from different backgrounds and the intersectionality that's blending together in this show is really inspiring, and I think reflective of the world and how it's changing and how we're really coming together to address these questions like what is the future going to be for us. And I think that kind of go back to what Angelique has been saying about how these inanimate objects kind of hold so many answers to these really rich questions that we have about what life really means, what does it mean to be human, and what does it mean to try to sustain that in a world that is constantly evolving. So yeah, it's been awesome. I'm so thankful for the two artists that I've gotten to work closely with as well, Morel and Anne. You guys are incredible, so talented, and have been really insightful, even in coming up with my own thoughts on the show as well. You start with the concept, and by the end, you have just this totally different perspective on it. So everybody has really informed me in one way or another. So very thankful.
Thanks, Zindzi.
I'll share that this show has happened at a time where I've had a lot of transition in my life, moving from LA to New York, starting a new job. So it got a little hectic for me at some point, but I just think that the team has been really incredible. And there's also been, I think there was a good structure when it came to doing this show. Like we had sort of, we were responsible for certain things, and like that way we could like work on our own time and then come together and do things. But I will say I'm super curious to read what my co-curators have written. I don't know what in the end, like where the thoughts landed with everybody. I think with what Zindzi just said and like what has been said so far, like that the sort of the thoughts that I've had, and that's what I ended up writing about. It's just such a interesting. It's not the first time that I've had to think about the future. At some point at MAD, we had a Future of Craft exhibition, and I just think I wrote a little bit about sort of this like fortune telling that as curators we often do. So I'm just like really excited to see like the answer at the like when the show is open, and then when I get to read everything together, I'm really excited to see what is the sort of collection of answers that we came up with, because I think that there isn't one answer. It's a multitude of them. So I'm personally really excited to see how it turns out. Just like how it's like we know and we don't know, just like everybody else. But super, super great to work with the cohort. And then the artists also, like the two artists that I invited are artists that I admire very much and I haven't gotten a chance to work with before. So really exciting to get to do it this way.
Thanks, Angelique.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to everyone. And I remember when Jennifer came to visit me in DC at the National Museum of the American Indian. And I'm really excited to see all the artworks and to learn more through these essays. Because, yes, again, I have no idea what anybody else wrote about. And also to meet all the staff. Plus, it's also lovely not to work in the federal process because if you do an exhibition at the Smithsonian, it generally takes 7 years. And so it's really wonderful to do something and you actually see a result from it instead of usually how I have to work in the federal system. So that has been really freeing.
That's good to hear. Well, one of my answers, I will share the other essays with all of you soon. One of my answers is just that collaboration is the future of kind of everything, and definitely curating, in my opinion. I don't think that my singular voice is really relevant, which is why I've been really trying to make sure that I kind of always am collaborating with other curators and asking for other voices, because like Angelique said, the answer to what is the future is that there are many answers. There are definitely some themes that come to the front when you read the essays, but yeah, the fact is that we are more and more hopefully moving towards a world where everyone can have their own answer and pursue it. And in relation to collaboration, I just want to make sure that I say that Trinity Dubois is our exhibition project coordinator and is doing an amazing job. They are a joy to work with every day and a big part of why this is so well organized. So thank you to Trinity. Trinity's here in the room with us. And I love to hear that it was nice to work in the process and that it was fast. I was hoping that you all would get the sort of joyful part of the curating and that we could take care of all the administrative parts so that you had the fun part without the hard parts. Not that the thinking isn't hard, but anyway. Okay, I thank you for those comments. I'm just gonna have everyone look through our slides very quickly, and not to give the artist short shrift, but this was about the curators, and we will have a chance to talk to all the artists. Plus, if you come to the opening, you will get to speak to the curators and a bunch of the artists in person. But we can start with, if Zindzi, do you have the sort of 30-second pitch for each of the people you picked, since we don't have too much more time yet? And then we can have everybody just go that.
Yeah, I will be very quick. So this is Anne Adams' work. She is incredible, coming out of Temple from Nigeria. And this work is called Ancestors. It is a culmination of several smaller sculptural pieces that she's created. Anne is pulling from archives that British colonial archives specifically, that documented a lot of the communities in Nigeria. She's really interested in how these archives kind of inform our cultural identity, as well as stereotypes that we have about what it means to be African. I think this work in particular, Ancestors, kind of alludes to the theme of the future of clay, by bringing these ancestors together to almost look down on us in a way, stewarding us into the future, but also requiring us to look into the past as well, to discover more of that information about our identity. This work also focuses on environmentalism in a way as well, inherently through the medium that's being used, it has a lot of deep cultural ties as well to Nigeria, specifically with this style of ceramic work that she's doing here.
Great, thank you. And then environmentalism continues here.
Yeah, so environmentalism is very present here with Morel's work. This is a really beautiful piece that focuses on looking at the way we interact with the environment and our relationship with the environment as humans and the implication that can have. I think this piece also is really focusing on hope in a lot of ways, and looking at how we can have rebirth by having this level of self-awareness about our engagement with the environment. So both really incredible sculptural works that will be hung on the wall for everyone to see and engage with.
Excellent, thank you. Anya.
Yes, so Chase Kawanut Earls is a Native American artist based in Oklahoma. So he is Caddo, which is an indigenous nation with homelands that include present-day parts of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. 3,000 years ago, the Caddo were part of the Mississippian area, and all these like wonderful ancestral potteries that are often found in museum collections are from the Caddo people. And Chase took a lot of time to educate himself on ancestral pottery. So he learned where to find local clay sources. So he harvests and processes natural clay, hand builds his pots, does the engraving designs, burnishes with river stones, and also does pit firing. So here you can see some of the examples of what you'll see in the exhibition. For example, Hasane means our own people in the Caddo language and is a human-shaped vessel with ear spools and decorative markings on the body. So it's very much talking about that ancestral pottery. But then there's a piece like Scout, which is a version of Star Wars and the Imperial droid used by the Galactic Empire to search for enemy groups. So he works also in indigenous futurisms because he really wants to show people that Native people are not stagnant and that we just don't produce old things for nostalgia. So he really wants to let people know about influences of pop culture for Native people. And then the next artist is Holly Wilson. She is also a Native American artist. She is Lenape. She's an enrolled member of the Delaware Nation of Oklahoma and a descendant of the Delaware tribe of Indians. If you don't know, because of this horrible exodus of what happened to Lenape folks, you will find Lenape folks in New Jersey, as well as Canada, as well as Wisconsin, as well as Oklahoma. So she is from the Oklahoma groups. And during her career, she has worked with clay, bronze, wood, oil paint, all these things. And she earned her BFA in ceramics from the Kansas City Art Institute, and then an MA in ceramics and an MFA in sculpture from the Stephen F. Austin State University. So a lot of times she makes figurative work, and you'll see sometimes these people that have large feet, and it also represents removal and her ancestors that were forced to leave their homelands and travel such long distances. So, and she's really said that her whole focus is on history and trying to find the people and connections and cultural things. And there's so many things that she feels are missing. And so she's trying to pull that together and also show people about the resilience of Lenape people today.
Thank you, Anya.
Hey, this is the work of Christy Moreno, who is a Latinx artist. She's not really based anywhere right now. She's been on sort of a residency tour for a long time. She was at the Brave for a long time. Now she's doing a residency at Greenwich House Pottery, so she's very close to me right now. I will say that both Christy and Michelle, who are the artists I invited, came to my opening the other day. It was really great to see them in the same place. Hopefully they can come to the opening too. But Christy works in this very sort of idiosyncratic style in which she has come up with a cast of characters. And like once you know her work, you will always be able to tell like this is Christy's work. And she does these sort of monolith sculptures in which there's multiple people in them. And it's really a celebration of community and girlhood. And a lot of the work looks futuristic in that very sort of classic retrofuturistic futurism of like spacesuits and things like that. And yeah, her work is really, it's about protest and it's about breaking systemic patterns and prioritizing community over sort of capitalism and other things like that. Mm-hmm. And then Michelle Im's work. Michelle is really interesting. You maybe know her work through Rat Chicks. She has built a career making this really lovely functional wear, very painterly, these really gorgeous like images that she like painstakingly paints on them. And she's sort of going through a transitional period in her career in which she has started to make more figurative work and other sculptural work. And that's the work that we're showing in this exhibition. I'm really excited for her. I'm really excited to see where her career is going. But she's doing something really interesting in which she's like working towards like the future of her own career, but she's really thinking about the past of her own life. As she is like sort of reflecting and then making new work. And I just think that's like a huge thing when thinking about the future, right? Like it's like you can't really build a future without thinking about the past or like keeping in mind whatever happened in the past. So it's really cool to see what she's doing. And it's really about storytelling. That's what she's doing through her work.
Well, I think you just said the theme of the show, Angelique. You can't build a future without thinking about the past.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the two artists who I worked with are Cesar Viveros, who is someone who's really dear to the Clay Studio's heart. Cesar has been working with us since 2018 when we first knew we were going to move to this neighborhood. He lives nearby, and we started a council, an exhibition council that he joined right away. So we were really had the privilege of getting to know him well. But Cesar hasn't worked with clay in a long time. So he told us about an early moment in creativity when he was a kid in Mexico. He found some clay on his grandparents' land and he started making little sculptures out of it. And that was one of his first experiences with being creative. And then he's built his career in art as a painter and a muralist. So he's used to working on flat surfaces, but he's been wanting for the last few years to work with clay again. So this opportunity, this exhibition gave us the chance to have him be a guest artist here at the Clay Studio. And this is work by someone who hasn't worked with clay since he was a kid, essentially. And it's amazing. So that, take that in when you see it in person. So that's one thing that's really exciting. And it also speaks to our community because lots of people in the building have, supported his work as he's been going through the process. The amazingness of the Clay Studio continues to be inspiring. And there will be two more of these like braziers, essentially. They're supposed to be things that you could build a fire inside. And we can talk more about that when we see them in person. And then Jolie No, who is definitely the first person who popped into my mind when I started thinking about this exhibition, because she is, I think, this ceramic artist who is making, one of the people who's making like really, really amazing forward-thinking work with 3D printers. These new digital tools are really exciting. It can be really challenging to use them in ways that you don't let the tool do the talking. And I think Jolie really achieves that by you can really see her own voice in these. She's embellishing them. She's thinking about them in really expansive ways. She's adding color. So that's really exciting to have this person who's really, as I think Angelique called her, a beta tester in the field, which is great. And it's also really celebratory for us because we just opened our digital production studio here at the Clay Studio. So we now can offer people the opportunity to start also doing their own beta testing. And we are over time by about 4 minutes. So I'm going to stop there and ask everyone. I imagine you probably have questions, but I think we're going to have to hold them. Please come to the opening, talk to the curators and the artists. If you have more questions, you're always welcome to send them on to me and I can ask the curators offline. But thank you to everyone who joined us today. We're just, I just feel so lucky that everyone's in our community and ready to, oh, there's Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Be part of this. Thank you again to you three amazing people. There aren't, the idea that craft curators, it's a pretty small group of humans in the world, and that I got to work with three amazing women and who share that same, like, yes, I got so excited in art history class. Like, yes, me too. Has really been a joy. So thank you so much. Okay. Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have
Bye,
a great
everyone.
day. Thank you.